Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
My name is Victor Ochen. I am the director for African Youth Initiative Network, which is an NGO working in northern Uganda. We are a non-governmental organization registered with the government, and we work primarily to mobilize the victims and communities in promoting peace and justice. I think the most important thing is when you call it best practice, and you ask yourself, is best for who? Is it best for the system, or best for the victims, or best for the local population? So to me, it's very important that I'm taking part, because I bring with me to this conference the local experience of my encounter working and supporting the victims of conflict. And I bring what I think is best for the victims and best for the local civil society organization. And that's why hearing how people are talking about, bringing to this conference, they are quite academic, understanding, local community understanding, and the civil society platform, ranging from governments to international organizations and international development partners. I think it's key that we gather in a conference like this to talk about what is justice in Africa and what is the best practice, when it comes to dealing with international criminal justice. And my question still stands: in whose interest? Best for who? For victims or for the system? In Uganda, we worked so much on supporting the victims' participation in criminal justice processes, both international criminal justice and national criminal justice, including transitional justice. Internationally, we have been the lead agencies promoting and engaging the communities to take part in the International Criminal Court, and primarily doing community mass awareness creation, sensitizing the population about the International Criminal Court. And we took another bold step to mobilize the victims' participation in the court processes. And there are a lot of avenues, layers that victims can take part. But the question is, how do they participate given their disconnect from the international system, the international communities? I think my role and our role as the organization I represent is to plug the gap, to bridge the gap between the victims, local victims populations, and other conflict-affected communities, together with the international communities, as well as to try to bring the international understanding to the local communities, but also, most importantly, to take the voices of the victims' population to the international platform. And that's really what is key. If we have a global and national advocacy driven by the victims' needs, the needs of the people affected by the conflict, I think we are fair and just in our judicial, in a search for justice, or search for remedies or redress for the victims. And also, our definition of justice also get to be challenged or to be inspired by what is understood locally and what is expected by the people who suffered, in this case the victims. I think we do have community elements where we do a lot of community outreach programs, sensitizing the population, answering their questions, taking on to them, the communities, the informations, and answering their questions, and providing them additional information and latest updates of what's going on internationally that they deserve to know. And what our role majorly is to mobilize the people, to reach out, to engage them, to let them be part of what is going on globally. And also, we engage through different avenues. We reach out to the communities, engage on one-on-one public dialogues. We reach out through the community radio stations. We do produce promotional materials, to disseminate and package and take back the information to the communities. All these are related to how can we simplify the understanding of international criminal justice by the local population. And also, by the word international, shouldn't make it that it doesn't fit, it doesn't apply to the local communities. Who defines what is international? Is it by geographical affiliation or location? Why am I not an international person if I'm based in a community in northern Uganda? I think my life as a human, by the fact that I'm a human, I become part of the international communities. So the point is, why is it sometimes too international to be understood by the local population? It's because we complicate it so much in a way that we tend to, subscribe to the geographical ideology that when knowledge is not brought from outside, it is not real, it's not authentic. But we are saying we learn more from the local people who have lived, who have suffered, and we develop our mechanism based on our understanding of the local dynamics, because there is no imported solution. We do think solutions can come from within, and that's what we have been very, very successful on. So that we use the local medias, we reach out to the communities, we create a platform where they come to us. We created the center where they can access us anytime they want to. So that has been very successful. Yes, we are victim-centered organization, and we are victim-centered. We are victim-focused, and we were the victims ourselves. We survived. Some of us lived in the refugee camp for years and years, and I think we came up together. We have an organization of over 30 staffs, and these 30 staffs have people who lived in northern Uganda. People who live in IDP camps. Majority of our staffs are people who are abducted, and they lost family members. So we came together to try to help ourselves get out of the situation. So that's why we engage from staffing to the community. We are programming always around the victims. And we do ensure that whatever programming we are taking on is victims-driven, victims-influenced, and victim-centered. I think reconciliation is broad. Reconciliation has a stronger element of justice, both national and international criminal justice. Reconciliation has an element of truth, which is more locally driven. And reconciliation has more elements of accountability. People want to see, it's not just a mere forgiveness, it's a reconciliation. For you to reconcile, you must ensure there's justice. And then you come to the international justice. We have International Criminal Court, operating and working in northern Uganda. They have a case. We have national judicial system, International Crimes Division, which is at a national it's a national mechanism. We have transitional justice mechanism, which also still embraces that, addressing the history of what happened, and also providing remedies and redress, and also ensuring guarantee of non-recurrence of the situation. So reconciliation actually is a larger bracket of forgiveness, justice, and all that. And I think we have to agree to the fact that there's reconciliation beyond the courtroom. We have criminal proceeding that should take place, but we should know forgiveness and reconciliation as itself will not come from court alone. It has to come from outside the court. We're looking for justice beyond the courtroom. It has an element of community reconciliation, trying to resettle the torn apart society, to at least tolerate each other. That is important. Meanwhile, you and also the element of criminal justice proceedings, strengthen it, make it stronger, keep it as deterrent as possible so that people will not go through what they went through again. But sometimes we get so bogged down and rush to forgiveness that, oh, let's forgive. But, if you don't put into force the mechanism of justice, you have a possibility of retaliation. Either you reconcile or you face retaliation. So the two of them are very, you miss one, you don't miss the other one. So we are saying, why can't we embark more on reconciliation? By promoting justice, by promoting, truth-telling. People need to be told about the truth of what happened and why did they have to suffer. And is there any reasons why they should be going through what they're going through? And if there is no reason, if there is an understanding, admissibility of the crime committed, then they should be formally guaranteed that this is not going to happen again. And that's why I think it's important. All these segments has a stronger importance of the society. If community are excluded from the process, if the system looks so academic, too international to be understood by the local population, then we miss the point. Whose justice are we looking for? If it is justice for the victims, then let us have victims on board from the start. I think in my country, like in other African countries where we have been working in, There is lack of proper methods of accessibility. To the society, there's a general perception that the court system, whether it be national, local, or international, is too corrupt, too bureaucratic, too system-oriented, pro-rich, always excludes victims, does not take into account the needs of the people. So we want to kind of rebrand the image of justice, rebrand the image of courts, whether it be national court or international courts. Let us make sure that people understand this, and we try to say that, can we make sure that people understand what they're up to, what they stand for, and also it's most important to restore the trust. People have lost trust in court system, whether it be local or international. And that's why we are saying, no matter what happened locally, even though we have local traditional justice mechanism or national judicial mechanism, let us keep the international criminal justice alive in the community. And that's our advocacy, making sure that the fact that the communities we serve or the community we grew up in belongs to international community, we have to maintain international community, level in that community, and also make sure international criminal justice remains alive. There is the element of citizenship and the international communities. I think people lose their identity when they are subjected to deep sense of horrors. People start questioning, do we belong to this country? Why are we made to suffer the way we are suffering? Why is the government not responding? You can say, when the first day attack happens, you might say, yes, there was an error in intelligence, the government did not know it, they were taken by surprise. The second day, you can say the government was trying to reorganize to come and counter the situation. After 1 week, you can say the government was already in the community and trying to gather the intelligence to make sure the response is effective. But for it to happen the second week, the second month, after 1 year, atrocious is still happening. People start questioning, why is this happening? What is the government doing? Why can't they protect the civilian population? But for it to even happen for 5 years, it becomes an aspect of negligence. It is impossible for the state, a functioning state, to allow the entire region or a particular region to be caught up in this sense of baseless conflict. The government must always be ready to protect the civilian population. And then sometimes most of these conflicts continue for 10 years, 20 years. And then you wonder, where is the legitimacy of the government? And the question of identity becomes real. Are we citizens, or we are just not citizens? Do we mean much to this country? Are we part of the national interest, or we are just subject to whatever interest? So this brings so much issues that needs to be resolved. And in most cases, people tend to start questioning their state legitimacy in the face that they cannot be protected by their own states, which I understand completely. I think no and yes. The International Criminal Court's weakness, it is a weakness at the central coordination unit, at the secretariat of the court. Sometimes the court appears too international, too far away from the real situation, too bureaucratic. And they focus more on the perpetrators as opposed to the victims. And then the court makes decisions without consulting with the key people on the ground sometimes, of which some of these decisions are based on studies or experience done from a particular country, and they just try to put it forward to this country. So I think the other biggest aspect of the court, despite the fact that they struggle with the resources, courts' meaningful lack of meaningful presence in the community undermines their standing seriously. And of course, they count on the government's cooperation, the state corporations, the element of complementarity and all that. Yes, also back to our countries, we have a very challenging political system in most of our countries. There's so much element of what do international criminal court come from? Crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide. And in most cases, the state brutality, the state-sponsored brutality, makes them almost a candidate for investigation by International Criminal Court. And then when it comes to the issue, there's that regional element of solidarity, let's say like in Africa, where the African leaders decide to say that we are going to make a mass withdrawal from the ICC just because they are focusing on Africa. For real, let's understand and ask ourselves, is the war crimes not happening in Africa? Is genocide not happening in Africa? And is crimes against humanity not happening in Africa? So if it's happening, why must we compare the rate at which we Africans are being killed and the rate at which other nations or other continents are also being killed? I think it is so consuming to imagine that our leader says that because you are not investigating issues of Gaza, you are not investigating issues of Russia or other communities, then you don't qualify also to come and do that. Why are we competing in killing and say because you are not talking to them, we are not stopping them from killing their people, I'm also going to kill mine? Is this what our government should do? No, the answer is no. It comes back to our original element. We should care for our own people. Every nation around the world have a reason to care for their own people. Why must it be a subject of argument, political argument, that because you're doing it at a continent, then we're also not going to cooperate, yet you continue to brutalize and torture your own people at will? That is not okay. Then it comes to the government, in most cases, do have a problem. In most cases, the states struggle to, impose themselves to the people affected by conflict in their own territory. I come from northern Uganda. The government has struggled for years for its own acceptance by the people who suffered for over 20 years. Generations of people were born and raised, and all they learned was suffering. All they experienced their suffering. And they are struggling to understand if really they deserve the way they were made to suffer for too long. Is it possible that a genuine state would allow this to happen for too long? And this is where the question comes in. People start wondering if really I am standing for my own government, I'm standing for justice. And then the question would be, even when it comes to gathering the information, intelligence, or collecting the evidences, a lot of people get scared by seeing a state operatives involved in any evidence collection. A lot of victims will not want to see any government official taking part in evidence collection by the ICC. The reason is simple, because you don't know what your information is going to be used for. So lack of trust of state by the people is a big obstacle to the ICC's success locally. But also ICC's ways of bureaucratic ways of handling issues, focusing more on perpetrators more than the victims, it brings to the question of whose justice. If ICC could spend all the money they are spending on addressing the victims' plight, probably there would have been more reconciled society than we are seeing now. But they spend on one individual, they spend millions and millions of euros. And still, there's no progress. And yet, even though imprisoning or arresting someone may not mean much, because it won't heal the wound, and we are saying, can we make sure that any intervention, let us make justice a reality, not just in papers, not just, let's take justice beyond the courtroom. Let's address the people's need. Nurture, culture of tolerance. Promote reconciliation. Let people be able to heal emotionally, physically, and that will nurture a prospect for historical healing. That's the only way we can achieve much. I think one of the number one question you ask is about how can we nurture the national confidence in the national criminal justice. That is key. The moment there is a gap in people's confidence towards the national judicial system, the only alternative is the international mechanisms. To me, that makes sense, because the moment people think ICC went to northern Uganda on the peak of the war, when the people of the entire population of northern Uganda did not believe in the government, they did not believe in the judicial system, and the only neutral ground which they could be allowed to trust on any system was the ICC. So when ICC went there, at least that was the only alternative, because the government was struggling with its own acceptance, lack of trust. And then you come to the issues of the prospect of moving forward within the community that is torn apart. I think the government should, in order for them to be seen to be doing some serious stuff, to be meaningfully engaging people, the population, they should address people's need. They should be seen to be responding to people's need. Why must the government wait until when a perpetrator is arrested, then they start intervening? And let us also make not only infrastructure rehabilitation, let us talk about the human life, save life before they die. Otherwise, always focus goes on road repairs, school renovation, and all. Those are all very essential and good stuff, but it misses the point, saving life. Each day, the legacies and tragedies of war remains visible in people's heart, in people's body, in people's communities. Anger, bitterness, and frustration against the government, against the international communities who fail to respond to their needs increases every day. And each day when all this kind of stuff continues happening, the prospect for reconciliation, the prospect for tolerance diminishes every day.
Fieza haki bomona maye ba ojo